Hello everybody and welcome to the Rule of 72. Now just a quick disclaimer before we get into the video, I just want to kind of clear up some confusion here. The first 3 videos on this channel are actually going to be re-uploads from my original channel, J72 Gaming. I decided I needed to actually remove the reviews and make them only here on this channel, and so to do so, I'm re-uploading the first 3. So if you hear some confusion during this video where I'm referencing the channel, it's talking about that channel. But once we get past the first 3 reviews, I'm going to have a review on Pal World coming up, and these will be coming out every Saturday, and then hopefully every 2 weeks from then once we get past the first 3. Okay, I hope you guys understand that confusion and can still enjoy the video. So let's get into what you guys clicked on, which is Path of Titans reviewed on a scale from 1 to 72. Enjoy. Hello everybody and welcome to the J72 Gaming and Review channel. My name is Jacob, but you guys can just call me Jay here. Path of Titans is an incredibly unique take on the dinosaur creature survival genre. One that has surprised me time and time again with the directions the developers at Alderaan Games have decided to take their game. They've taken this rather simple yet captivating creature survival genre and they've bent it to their needs, twisting it into as much of an MMO that they possibly can, all while remaining true to the core aspect of these games, playing a massive dinosaur and surviving out in the world. Now, I've been covering Path of Titans on this channel for about 3 years now, so I've seen the ups and downs of the game throughout its development and its updates. But today I wanted to kind of sit down and review this game, to rank this game, and to give it a value, a number, that we can rank it against all other games that I will review in the future. But I also thought that ranking it out of 10, or ranking it out of 100, that just seemed kind of boring, kind of usual, kind of basic. And then I thought, this is the J72 Gaming channel. 72 is really important to me, it's my favorite number. Let's rank it out of 72. Now, I've devised a ranking system today that is going to start a long series of mine here on this channel, the Rule of 72. This ranking system will allow us, over time, to see how all of our favorite games, both shiny new titles, as well as some older classic games that we can go back and look at, and pretty much everything in between, will rank next to each other. Is Path of Titans going to be higher than, I don't know, say Super Mario? Halo? Tetris even? Okay, I don't know about some of those games, as those are pretty heavy hitters, but what about compared to The Isle? Now, I've already done a few comparison videos between these 2 games, and now it's time to finally test these games on their own and give them a hard number grade. So the Rule of 72 ranking system is going to work like this. I've broken the 72 points down into 7 categories of 10 points each. These categories are all the major areas I believe a game should be ranked and graded on, and I try to be as fair as possible with the ranking based on my experience with each title that we review. Let's cover each of these 7 categories real quick. First and foremost for a game, the gameplay. This is simply how much fun it is to play the game. A game can have horrible graphics and story beats, but if playing the game is fun, it's going to get a high gameplay rank. A 10 out of 10 example is Rocket League. Second up is the game's story and lore, or in the case of a few simple games with neither of those, it's simply the setting and or atmosphere of the game. The vibe, for lack of better terms. A game with a compelling atmosphere to immerse yourself in will receive high ranks. 10 out of 10 example, The Last of Us series. Third is a rating based on the game's performance quality. Now this could simply be about how well the software handles the PC or console, but I'm going to also make it about how well it feels for the player to control. If the UI is clunky, the characters move like boats, or maybe the keybind controls are convoluted and silly, well, those types of games will get low ratings. 10 out of 10 example for this, Mario Kart 8. The fourth category of 10 points is going to be this game's graphics and visuals, but I'm someone who fully enjoys a stylized game as much as the top-of-the-line, new flashy title, so don't worry about retro games always getting a low score. If a game has style and a crisp look to it, it can easily be a 10, even if it looks like it was from the 8-bit era. A 10 out of 10 example, GTA 5. Now the fifth category is one of my favorites, and that's the game's audio. This one's a bit more unique based off of each game we will cover, but it can include anything from the game's dialogue, ambient background noises, or soundtracks. A 10 out of 10 example, Red Dead Redemption 2. Sixth topic to rank is going to be about the game's community or multiplayer aspects. This category covers both how well a game is suited and executes on being multiplayer, if it claims to be one, and it ranks the communities based around the game. Some games like the Pokemon series have a very welcoming community overall, with lots of love spreading well beyond the original, mainly single-player games. But some games can have a lower score if they fuel a toxic and nasty environment, such as some MOBAs or other online games. 10 out of 10 example, the Pokemon series. And now our last group of 10 points goes to how well the game is replayable, or how much value the game can hold if it's a single playthrough game. Now this category is harder to explain than the others, which is why it's reserved for last, but it generally ranks the game overall with a focus on how much your time in-game is valued, the effort required for it to be enjoyable, and how much replayability a game possesses. A 10 out of 10 example, I think, is Tetris. Now once we have those 7 categories all ranked out for us, we will have 2 more points to go, the 71st point and the 72nd. The 71st point is going to be awarded to games that I think are worth your time to really sink your teeth into. If a game is worth completing the story or worth reaching max level, it will get the point. Some games can have a decently high score, but still might not be worth to fully beat. Mario Kart is an amazing game to play, but do I think you really need to complete it? Well, maybe not. The 71st point is awarded to those games that are worth 100% of the content packed inside, a prestigious point that only highly valuable games will attain. And finally, this brings us to the 72nd point. And this point, folks, is my point. I think if a game is worthy of being amongst my favorite games of all games, then it will receive the 72nd point. I'm sure there will be a bunch of games that get a very high ranking, but only ones that really impress me will get this final golden star of a point. Alright everybody, with all those categories laid out, let's get to what you guys clicked on and rank Path of Titans between 1 and 72. So make sure you go sit back, kick back, and grab a snack because it's time to get into the video. Enjoy. Alright, so the first section, and arguably most important section that we need to grade Path of Titans on, is its gameplay, which at its core for this game is picking a dinosaur, questing to adulthood, and then probably look for some PvP, or maybe try to help others get to adulthood as well. All while unlocking new abilities and skins to use during the journey. Playing out these goals is at the forefront of the content for this game, so let's talk about how well they have it implemented. The main thing we need to discuss here really is the questing system. See, for most creature survival games, your creature will grow over time, passively, while you roam the map trying to survive, looking for food and water along the way. Well, Path of Titans has decided that in order to grow in their game, you're going to have to do some quests. This system for growth has some ups and downs, and honestly I do think it is a really cool idea that makes the game very different from other creature survival genre games. But sometimes picking up pine cones or sticks can get very repetitive, and I have heard many fans cry out that this is easily the most off-putting aspect of this game for them. There's just simply a lot of players out there who don't want a menial task to be the requirement to grow their creatures, preferring the passive growth system that can guarantee adulthood after some time. Personally, Path of Titans' quest and growth system is something I have gotten used to, and I do enjoy that you have something to do while growing. It gives you a task to try to complete while also trying to stay quiet, safe, and attentive to your surroundings. Now, the gameplay loop is often a term I use to describe this aspect of the game, as without the questing system, the game would become very stale very quick, as is apparent in games like Animalia, for example. Having the loop of trying to stay safe while trying to find food while also trying to complete something, in this case quests, really does a lot for the game. It promotes players moving around the map to new questing zones and thus fueling interactions between players that can lead to a hunt, a chase, or a good old fight to the death. I think it's really worth focusing on this aspect of Path of Titans, because I think this is the gameplay decision that really sets this game apart from its peers. But honestly, this is just how things play out on official servers. And if we were to be grading everything the game has to offer on gameplay, well, it would be a crime not to mention the modding and community server scene for this game. Now, because people can set their own rules on community servers, they can take away the long grinding of quests required on those officials. So ultimately, no matter which way you want to grow your dinosaur, and no matter which type of server you would like to play on, Path of Titans does offer you these options. And that's going to go a long way for me when I think of a number out of 10 to rank it on its gameplay. Let's also take time to talk about another big difference Path of Titans has when you compare its gameplay to other games in this creature survival genre: the ability system. See, while you're out doing quests, you will be rewarded with marks, which you can turn in for a few different things, amongst them being new abilities for your dinosaur to use. These are a whole range of things that would take a very long time to show you all the different types that are purchasable in the game. But think of each dinosaur as a different class in an MMO, and then you can start to see the scope I'm talking about. Some dinosaurs are even more suitable to be described as a healing or tank class, since creatures like the Lambeosaurus have a roar that can heal their group mates. Having all these different types of abilities really make each creature feel unique and different in their own way, and it's one of the main active choices you get to make during your journey as your dino. You'll have more abilities than slots to use, so even messing around with different builds on a single species has a good bit of play to mess around with. Now overall, I think these abilities help push Path of Titans into a unique gameplay experience that is honestly going to help out in its score today immensely. Mods also do need to be touched on a little bit more, but I want to discuss more of that later in the community and multiplayer aspect of this video. Just know that they exist for this game in a huge way by offering the player a ton of new maps as well as those creatures to mess around with. So I think I'm going to give the gameplay score a solid 8 out of 10. Because the game really does live up to what it sells to be. It's a dinosaur creature survival game that twists the genre towards an MMO, by requiring quests and tasks to be done to gain upgrades and EXP towards its endgame of adulthood. And I think it does a fairly good job at that. So gameplay is, overall, very fun, and gives you plenty of ways to make it feel different based off your species and ability choices. Plus the added benefit of offering those mods and community servers to allow you to choose the rule set that you want to play with means you're able to find a way to play this game that is catered to your liking. I think the gameplay only really loses some points because I do think that quest system could use a bit more work as it needs more variety to really be incredible. Also, I think that combat is pretty good, but not the greatest, and it always ends up benefiting from their updates as they continue to expand the ability system and balance their creatures out. But sometimes it's a bit dissatisfying due to the controls, which we will get into a little bit more later. Overall, 8 out of 10 for gameplay. Honestly, not a bad start for Path of Titans. Alright, now let's try and give this game a rating based off its setting, story, and lore. This game doesn't really qualify for a lore rating, nor does it really fit as well as a story-based game, other than the fact that Path of Titans has opted for a fossil-accurate depiction of their dinosaurs, which is fairly unique, as dinosaurs in Medium are often exaggerated in their features or inaccurately shown because having something like a Dilophosaurus spit acid in the face is sometimes a lot cooler than the reality. But many folks do appreciate the fossil-accurate style that Path of Titans has gone for. So whichever way you prefer your dinosaurs, accurate or exaggerated, I do have to respect Path of Titans for choosing the lesser traveled path of having fossil accurate dinosaurs. It's refreshing, to be honest, and does have the added side effect that you might actually learn something when playing. As far as a rating for its setting goes, however, we do have a lot to work with. Alderaan has offered us 2 official maps so far, with the original being called Pandura, which was an expansive, temperate forest map with lots of points of interest to stumble across, mainly focused around 2 large lakes at the center of the map. And the second map released is called Gondwa, which is an extremely detailed island map with multiple biomes and zones for the player to explore. Pandura, in my opinion, was just okay. It did have some genuinely special places like World Edge Falls, Spine Lizard Lagoon, and the ever-popular Corpse Cove, but overall I think this map lacks true character. It was a lot of the same stuff, to be honest, and it did exist at an early point in this game's history, but once the game released its Gondwa map, I think it's safe to say that was a unanimous success from the player base. The players loved the dynamically different zones to explore. I, personally, really fell in love with this map and spent a good many hours making a video tour for every single zone because it really captivated me as a location. But even though I do think this map was a huge upgrade from Pandura, and that each zone within itself is highly detailed and interesting to traverse, it does have to be mentioned that as a whole, Gondwa feels kind of like an amusement park. With each zone having such a hard edge border to it, the map really does have that MMO vibe to it, which is fine from a gameplay angle and helps build off the questing system we mentioned earlier. But as far as world building goes, it can feel a bit funky at times. Overall, however, I'm going to give Path of Titans a 7 out of 10 for its setting, story, and lore grade. It does what it needs to do to help facilitate the gameplay, and for that works very well, but it could do a bit more to, wow us. Luckily, mods have done a lot with a few great maps to help support the 7 rating, but yeah, I'm not connected to Path of Titans world as much as I think we could be, and I hope they continue to build up a compelling and interesting setting to this game as more updates are released. Performance time! This section is all about how well the game runs, both for the system, but also the user. So let's start with how it feels to play. Controlling your prehistoric beasts feels pretty good, and it's only gotten better over the years with those new abilities being thrown into the mix. Abilities that have changed how the creature controls have felt really impactful when growing a dino. The charge ability, for example, that creatures like the Pachy or the Pycno and some of the Ceratopsians get, can obviously be used to deal serious damage in combat, but also just using it to get around the map has been pretty swell. The Megalania also has abilities that allow it to spec into being subaquatic, so abilities like that have done a ton for how well the game feels to control, as more options to make each creature feel unique have done a lot to make the game feel full. I'd be remiss though if I didn't take time to talk about the precise movement system in this game. Now with this form of movement, a player can hit a button, X by default on PC, although I've always changed mine to left alt to feel better, but hitting this button will cause the creature to move in a much more accurate fashion. Driving some of these creatures can feel like you're moving a boat. They go straight, and they go left and right pretty well. But when you need to reverse or strafe, well, that's when you're going to need to use precise movement to get a real good hold on your creature. Now this movement system works fairly well, but I do have to say it can feel pretty clunky, and it took a good long time for me to be comfortable enough to use it on a daily basis. Fights in this game are also fairly well done, even if at times they can feel pretty clunky too. The game does have body collision, which may sound like a no-brainer to those of you who may be unfamiliar with creature survival games, but a lot of these creature survival games can lack collision, causing fights to be all about running at, through, and past your prey as you damage them. Collision, luckily, does exist in Path of Titans, and so combat is more about using your creature's speed, size, or abilities to survive and get the kill. How fights play out based on the creatures involved is a fun aspect of this game, one that rewards the players who have a strong knowledge of all the creatures and their abilities, but also one that rewards a player who has spent a lot of time with their specific creature, which is easy to do based on the long growth times on official servers. The choices of how combat plays out is more related to the gameplay score of this game, which I have definitely taken into account, don't worry. So let's bring it back to the performance. Grading the game based solely on how the controls feel, and I'd probably give this game a solid 7. But this section also includes how well Path of Titans runs on systems, and I gotta say that it brings up the final performance quality grade to an 8 out of 10. This game honestly runs really well. It's smooth, it has a ton of graphic options to raise or lower your settings. Making videos for this game over the past years with multiple iterations of my computer rig have honestly always been a pretty easy process, and that's simply something you can't say about every game out there. I have had my fair share of crashes, but honestly only a handful of them over years of gameplay, which seems pretty insignificant compared to how many times I've had, say, Baldur's Gate 3 crash on me. 8 out of 10 for performance quality. The game runs as well as it needs to, but its often clunky controls brought the score down a bit for me. Overall though, there are no huge complaints for me. 8 feels like a right spot. Take a look at this game, guys. At this point, Path of Titans has fully upgraded to Unreal Engine 5, which comes with all those glorious graphic grades that UE5 is so well known for. So being in a beautiful gaming engine is really going to help boost this graphics grade here, but keep in mind what I said at the start. The graphics grade is also visuals and style, and the Path of Titans has gone for an interesting style. I describe the look as a realistic take on the dinosaur world with just a dash of cartooniness. And yeah, cartooniness is going to be a reoccurring adjective I use here in this segment. But what I mean is that the creatures in this game are accurate to their fossil records, yes. And even the world is designed in a way to make it feel like a realistic simulation. But it still doesn't take that giant leap towards photorealism like its peer of a game, The Isle, does. Some people may immediately disregard games that display a bit of cartooniness in their design, but I can appreciate it that it sets a consistent style and vibe in the world around it. And so while Path of Titans may not have the most cutting-edge photorealistic graphics the world has ever seen, I don't think it cares to. And there's a charm to games that know what their vibe is and stick to it. With all that being said though, the dash of cartooniness that Path of Titans has allowed to season its vibe has not held back the stunning visuals UE5 is able to produce. Some of the best moments in this game happen at sunrise or sunset when you just need to sit back and appreciate the scene around you. So honestly, I think another 8 out of 10 is a great grade for this game's realistic cartooniness vibe. I could harp on why it doesn't get a 10 out of 10 due to little things like water being fairly basic, some zones and weather just being meh at times and kind of gray toned, but I think you guys get my point. It's great, Just not the type of world that I'm going to brag to my friends about how crazy the graphics and stylized world it is. Okay, let's dive into what I'll straight up tell you guys at the start of this grade is going to be Path of Titan's lowest grade, and that is this game's audio score. Path of Titans does a few things great for its audio, like the different calls and roars for all the creatures do feel unique and sound intense and represent the broadcast, threatened, alert, and friendly intentions of the dinosaurs. But I think that's all I can really boast about when it comes to the audio. The thing that really gets me in this game is that the roars don't travel very far. You don't get moments in this game where you stop and hear a T-Rex roaring way off in the distance, because basically if you hear a T-Rex roar, you're probably pretty close enough to see it. This makes the audio system in the game feel, very video game-ish, I guess, for lack of better terms. It takes you out of the immersion and makes you remember that you're playing a game. So, for combat, and knowing who or what is closely around you, sure, it's a combat advantage, and the developers may have intended to keep the roar distance close for gameplay balance reasons. But, I don't know, man. It just doesn't excite me very much. I love to hear that T-Rex call far off in the distance, maybe slightly muffled or distorted due to the long distance, and only does it get clear and loud when it comes closer. I keep bringing up the Isle in this review because I think it does a lot of things specifically much better than Path of Titans, and the Isle's audio is impeccable, largely due to this difference in how the range of roars plays out. Honestly, this lack of audio immersiveness goes as far as putting a bit of hindrance in the game's overall gameplay enjoyability. You also hear nearby footsteps from a far distance away, making the combination of loud footsteps and overall quiet roars very odd. Now, not only do the roar distance not really excite me in Path of Titans, but it's ambient audio, which is super important in a game where you spend most of your time kind of walking through a quiet forest setting, just listening for the sounds of other players. Well, the ambient audio is quite lackluster. I mean, it's fine. It's just, I don't know, it's just fine. It's got some birds and wind, and it does change its ambience based off the biomes you're in, but it's fairly simple and noticeably kind of on a loop if you pay attention to it. The new map of Ganwa did help upgrade the audio of Path of Titans compared to the old map of Pandura, but not quite enough for me to be super happy about its quality. Now, I was going to give the audio score here a 5 out of 10, but during the writing of the script, the Pounce update dropped, and actually added in more music to the game. And this music is fairly good, and sets the tone and vibe based off of which biome you're in. So because of that, I am going to raise the score up to a 6. But overall, the sounds in this game are just fairly average, and could use a ton of work to create a more immersive and enjoyable gameplay experience. Alright, time to chat about Path of Titans community and multiplayer grade. Now, this is a fun category, and I think it's going to take really a lot of research when we do future Rule of 72 reviews, because really understanding a game's community can take some time to fully understand the player's attitude towards different aspects of their game. Now, lucky enough for this review, since I've been covering Path of Titans for about 3 years now on this channel, we, as a subscriber base, the Sauropod Squad, are part of this Path of Titans community. So I feel okay kind of taking a reflective look at us as a whole and grading us based off the good things and some of the bad things. Let's start with the good, before we get into the bad and ugly. Put at its most simplest, the Path of Titans community is full of players who just simply love dinosaurs, which is a wide range of people, because dinosaurs, they're simply badass, guys. Kids, adults, elders alike, all share a common passion for dinosaurs, as they excite us with the idea of these giant prehistoric beasts. So overall, the vibes for Path of Titans community is based on how much fun it is to control one of these creatures. That makes playing the different species very enjoyable, and everybody can get excited about new dinosaurs being added into the game. What I think this really translates to is that the community's hype level can easily spike when they introduce a new dinosaur to an update. As a longtime MMO fan, it does feel akin to a game adding a whole new class into the mix. It shakes up the meta and gives everybody a new fancy tune to mess with. It's just simply exciting to be a Path of Titans fan, because they update quite frequently, to which I might add they do with solid quality. So at the best of times, the players you find outside and inside the game tend to be very passionate about dinosaurs and their chosen species that they have spent time with in the game. Everyone's got a favorite dinosaur. Look no further than my channel's Sauropod theme to guess which one is mine. And if you've got one, of course, let us all know down in the comments. Now, this grade also needs to take into account how multiplayer plays out within the game. And Path of Titans has made sure to make grouping up interesting and have systems within the game that help facilitate packs and herds of creatures. They have group quests that can be completed by everybody in the group, and some abilities that creatures have, mainly the roars, affect everybody in their party. Some smaller creatures really benefit from this, and actually focus on being a species that wants to group up. The two raptor species of Latin and Deinonychus are prime examples of this pack mentality. So I'd have to say that the multiplayer aspect of Path of Titans works well to broaden the scope of abilities and questing and helps fuel the MMO vibe this game is striving for. So grabbing a few buddies to hop on their favorite dinosaurs and making a pack or herd can be a very enjoyable experience. We do, however, everybody, have to get into the grime and the filthy side of this game's community, because no MMO would be complete without a toxic-fueled world chat, and no creature survival game would be complete without a culture of creating cuddle puddles in the popular areas of the map. Now, obviously, every game can have toxic players. It's a shame to admit, but let's be honest, lots of people frickin' suck. And having the freedom to spit out whatever vile and rude remark in an online chat really brings out the worst in people. So if you do plan on playing this game, understand that the world chat is often full of people complaining, arguing, and just simply insulting each other over fights, opinions, or just because they're having a bad day. As a longtime World of Warcraft player, this comes with the MMO territory, so I'm used to it. But I do, honestly, often turn my chat off most times I play. I just don't need that type of attitude when I'm trying to be immersed in a prehistoric world as a giant dinosaur. Now, this cuddle puddle culture I mentioned is also something I've been accustomed to here in the Creature Survivor world, and I am going to consider it a detriment for the game's community and multiplayer score. Now you see, if you're not familiar with this term, a cuddle puddle is where a ton of players, all being random different species, just kind of meet up in an area of the map and just, I don't know, they exist there. They're not doing quests, they're not collecting marks, not really playing the game. They're just using the experience as a sort of dinosaur chat room where they can all hang out. And look, there is nothing innately wrong with wanting to do this, but as far as how it impacts the rest of the player base and the game's gameplay system as a whole, it kinda sucks. Not to mention that if you do decide to show up to that cuddle puddle and you're either not welcome or dare to attack one of the players, well, this will usually end up in one single player being singled out and that cuddle puddle coming to attack you. It also just simply collects a large chunk of the server's player base and essentially makes them not part of that world's ecosystem, as they sit in one spot, making the rest of the map feel barren and more empty than it should. So overall, it's hard to think about Path of Titans multiplayer and community without mentioning some of these downfalls, as they are pretty prevalent in all servers that you can play on. But with the bad and the ugly being mentioned, I do think overall the grade for Path of Titans in this section should be a 7 out of 10. Its downsides do hold it back, but when you do find a group of players who want to go out questing, or to gather their carnivores for a hunt, or maybe choose herbivores for a night for a large migration challenge, well, it can be genuinely a swell time, full of fans of dinosaurs just wanting to have a good time as a giant prehistoric beast. I do also want to mention that, as far as my own personal experience with my community of subscribers here in the Sauropod Squad, that almost all of you who speak up and comment on these videos over the years have been truly great. And I think that I do try my best to try to foster a community that ignores the toxicity that we see in the world chat. And I think most of us do kind of roll our eyes at those cuddle puddles. So thanks from me to the squad and all that you guys do to help bring this community grade up to the solid 7 out of 10 that I think it deserves. Time for our final category, this game's value and replayability. Now, like I said at the start, this category is generally ranked on the game overall with the focus on how much your time in-game is valued and how much effort is required for it to be enjoyable, as well as how much replayability the game possesses. So for Path of Titans, it really comes down to the value of its replayability, since as an MMO, at its core, should be close to incompletable. This isn't a game that you're going to pick up once, play through a creature's life for 10 or 20 hours, and then call it good once you roll credits. No, it's a game that continually evolves over time with updates and new creatures being added, thus adding more value over time and driving up that replayability. Whether you choose to play as an apex carnivore, a pack of focused raptors, high-flying pterosaurs, or even aquatic and subaquatic species, this game does offer plenty of new ways that really make it full of options and different experiences. So that's really going to help the score, but at the same time, each creature does kind of start to feel the same in regards to the fact that you're going to be generally doing the same quests, on the same map, with the same amount of time it takes to get to adult for each creature. So while there is replayability in the number of species, we've got to be honest with ourselves about how many different species the average player is going to try and want to complete. Now I think that yet another 7 out of 10 is another solid ranking for Path of Titans' value and replayability. You get what you signed up for. It's an MMO that hosts tons of different options to play through, but each iteration after your first playthrough will have a lot of strands of similarity in its design as you complete the same quests every time. So I honestly think a 7 out of 10 represents Path of Titans fairly well, as it's a game that is definitely worth its value to play, but it still strives to achieve that 10 out of 10 score. Alright folks, that is it for all the categories, and after getting an 8 for gameplay, a 7 for settings and lore, 8 for performance quality, 8 again for graphics and style, edging out a 6 in audio, 7 community and multiplayer score, and a 7 again for value and replayability, it currently stands at a score of 51 out of 72. A fair score for a fair game, I think. But wait, we've got 2 more points to possibly award here. Point number 71 I said would be awarded to games that I think you all should complete. Games like the story of Red Dead Redemption, or completing all the trophies for the Spider-Man games. These games hold so much value and respect your time so well that they deserve another completionist point. But sadly, no. I don't think Path of Titans needs to be fully completed at this time. What does completion in this game even look like? Well, it could be argued getting a creature to full adult can be considered a credit rolling achievement in Path of Titans. But I'd like to mention that there are plenty of different species that can be played, which, while that does help the replayability of this game, it does water down the completionist aspect of the game. Even if we were to grade this point with only one creature's adventure in mind, you would still have to fully deck out your creature with an expensive skin, a home cave full of your rewards, and every ability under your belt. And to be honest, I just don't think that is worth doing right now in Path of Titans. I'm sure some of you have done such a thing with one creature, and that's great. Even I have. I myself love my Struthi, Speedy Boy, in all his glory. But I don't think that an average gamer who wants to pick up this game for the first time is going to get a full value out of it by forcing themselves to complete all the game has to offer. You can just have as much fun with this game trying new species without worrying about, quote, finishing the game. So while I do think Path of Titans is worth playing, you wouldn't worry about trying to complete it. And thus, I'm not going to be giving it the extra completionist point. Okay, so now for my favorite point to award in this, the 72nd star. And I'm sure it comes as no surprise that Path of Titans is definitely one of my favorite games. This game 100% gets my extra point awarded, because I adore this game, guys. It's got its faults, like a repetitive questing system, its subpar audio, and a community that is often toxic and full of cuddle puddles at times. But at its core, it's a dinosaur game that allows you to be immersed with your chosen species, as you spend hours bonding with it and all of its different skins and abilities to choose. The maps have variety and are enjoyable to be lost in, all while having an outrageous amount of mod supports to fuel those players who want more. I would not have covered Path of Titans for 3 years on my YouTube channel if I didn't have a large amount of passion for this game. And so I'm very happy to award it as a favorite game of mine, which means, ladies and gentlemen, that the final score for Path of Titans, using the Rule of 72 grading system, is a very solid and respectable 52 out of 72. As this was our first game graded this way, it gets to sit here all alone on the Great Wall of 72. But don't worry, this wall of games will fill up fast as we continue to rank and grade all of our favorite games out there, both new and old. I want to thank you all for watching through to the end. It was a long script. You can hear maybe my voice is going out a little bit at this end. But I hope you enjoyed everything. If you would like to kind of hang out, subscribe, join the Sauropod Squad, I would love to have you. See you in future videos as we start doing more of these reviews. We also have a Discord linked in the description below if you want. If you want a little bit extra from me, you can join to be a squad captain by becoming a member each month. But alright folks, that's it for me. I hope you enjoyed the review, and let me know what your grade down below with this system would be. I'm curious to hear how you guys would break up all the different scores. Alright guys, I hope you guys have a good rest of your day. But until next time, I've been Jay. Peace.